Sabah everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today, the Xperia 1 Mark III is the star of the show. We're going to talk about obviously all the new features that we have with the Mark III, but not only that, we're also going to focus on the front-facing display. That display that features a 4K 120Hz refresh rate that's supposed to give us some of the best gaming experiences on a mobile device to date. This is TK and this is my gaming review of the Xperia 1 Mark III. Let's check it out. Like and subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. So this is the unboxing experience, the Xperia 1 Mark III in frosted black. There is actually a second color that's available in the US, and that's going to be the frosted purple one. So really nice that we have at least a couple of selections this year. The 30-watt charger that comes in the box will be able to charge this 4500 milliampere battery from 0 to 50% in about 30 minutes. We also have the included USB-C to USB-C cable to be able to do obviously charge data and of course use our smartphone if we want to connect it to our PC. So this is the Xperia 1 Mark III. This device features some of the best specifications we can get on the market in 2021. First thing I'll start off by saying it's powered by the Snapdragon 888 and we actually have 5G connectivity in the US now. This is something that's different from the Xperia 1 Mark II from last year. Although very fast, we did not have 5G support. But right now I'm running it on T-Mobile and it is running on the Sub-6 technology from T-Mobile. The main thing that I want to mention to you guys is that speeds on this are crazy fast. And I mean crazy fast. Yesterday, driving down the street from where I live, I was able to actually get 650 megabits down with 122 up. That is crazy. And yes, I was connecting to 5G. You can see the two different 5G connectivity. I tested it out later on and I got 329 down and about almost 12 up. So definitely one of the fastest capabilities, and I'm really happy that we have that with the Snapdragon this year. We have 12 gigs of RAM with 256 gigs of internal storage that not only is expandable, but also expandable with the toolless tool here, SIM tray, that we're able to expand. So here we actually have a SIM card and a SIM tray, of course a memory card option to be able to add that in there. And one of the best things that we actually have here is the fact that we can expand that memory out. So really nice. The other thing I also want to mention is 6.5-inch 4K 120Hz refresh rate display. Not just 120Hz recording capability on the cameras in the back, but now we have a display that matches that resolution. So meaning today's video, which is focused on gaming, is definitely going to be kicking it out of the park. 6.5-inch 120Hz refresh rate 4K panel. So the refresh rate that we have here is actually pretty much either a 60 or 120Hz refresh rate experience. You can go in directly into the settings tab, go directly into the display, and they pretty much kept it right in front of us, the high refresh rate. So you can either turn it on or turn it off. So if you turn it off, the device will run at 60 Hertz. There's no 90 Hertz option. So there's no in between. It's either you go super fast and go with all of the benefits, or you go with 60 frames per second. So if you want to save some battery. We still have the ability of customizing the white balance experience with all the different options that we have in there. Image quality settings also in there. So we have creator mode for watching and consuming content. All of those things are going to be great. Although I don't recommend using creator mode in gaming experiences, as you tend to want to have the best high contrast and of course highest refresh rate. So that's more for content consumption, and it does turn on automatically when you have Netflix turned on. So you can actually customize that experience. But the other thing I want to mention to you guys is also the speakers that we have in here. They've been improved over last year's speakers, definitely sounding fuller and bassier than what we got last year. And of course, definitely a big improvement overall in the gaming experience, since we still have the two front-facing speakers. So when you're gaming on the smartphone, you're not having to worry about basically the sound going away from you. It's coming straight at you. To top that off, we still have access to that high-quality DAC supported headphone jack that we have at the top, one of the microphones, a volume rocker. The power button with the fingerprint sensor is there, still just as good as we had it last year. Basically the assistant button that we have in right now, so you can customize that and push that in there. And of course, the other option that we have in here is the dedicated camera shutter button. So one button right now is configured to launch the basic camera mode. So let's go ahead and push it. It takes you straight into it. And if you want to switch over to auto, you can go ahead and customize it. And then you're in the Camera Pro application. And of course, just enjoying all of the benefits of the primary sensors and of course the new telephoto sensors. One of the other things I'll definitely be able to do for you guys in the full camera review is the ability of using the 3 sensors on the back to give us 4 different focal planes. We have 2 separate telephoto options, the standard focal length and of course the ultra wide, all still technically 12 megapixel sensors, but the larger pixels give us the ability of having much better image processing. Wireless charging, NFC still present at the top, dual tone LED flash. On the top, as we talked, the headphone jack, one of the microphones. On the bottom, we have no bottom firing speaker because it's still front facing. USB-C, one of the other microphones, and of course, just still a very similar, very, I would say, very reminiscent feeling of what you got with the Xperia 1 Mark II. So if you loved the form factor, the 21:9 aspect ratio that we got there, this is pretty much what you get here. The only main difference that you get in here again is the fact that we now have a frosted black as opposed to a mirror finish. So you can see where definitely everything kind of shows up. It's much better with fingerprint rejection, although you can still kind of see a little bit of smudging, but just not as pronounced as we have them here with the Xperia 1 Mark II. The one thing to mention to you guys, the gaming experience that I'm sharing with you guys today was recorded a few weeks ago, so this is why you'll noticing when I go into the game enhancer, I don't have actually all the games that I'm going to be talking about today listed in here. So just keep that in mind. They actually were installed on a previous version of this phone, and now I have the opportunity to spend some more time with it, so this is why we're looking at it here. So I have Call of Duty Mobile, Pubg Mobile, we also had Real Racing 2. Of course, we were testing out different things to be able to get the refresh rate and the resolutions that we wanted to get out of it. But one of the biggest things that I really liked about this is the ability of playing Call of Duty Mobile at 120 frames per second. This is something that I haven't seen on any other device to date. So 120 frames per second on Call of Duty Mobile, okay, I'll give it a second to finish up. It's definitely a game changer when it comes down to mobile gaming. So when we go into the settings tab, we can jump straight into the graphic, audio and graphics, and we can actually see here the Ultra MP only. So basically the ability of jumping, obviously the quality of the graphic has to drop. So if you want to go to very high, max will be the maximum resolution. And that was actually running pretty decent. I was able to get about a good consistent 60 frames per second experience. And I did my testing with the original unit that way. With this one, since I was actually able to see that the update did get pushed out from Call of Duty to be able to support the 120 frames per second here, this is going to definitely work for us very nicely. So 120 Hertz refresh rate, medium quality settings, but still super fluid, super great. So we're going to share with you guys real quick some footage right now from the gameplay of the Call of Duty mobile game that I did yesterday. The speakers on this is definitely so much better. It definitely improved from what we got last year, but we're still having front-facing experience. And I was able to also switch over to headphones if I wanted to be able to a little bit more discreet and not necessarily have to worry about anybody else listening to the music or anything, you know, or even listening to the gameplay, especially with Call of Duty. There's a lot of gunfire, so it definitely sounds a lot better when you're using headphones. So as far as the gaming experience, what I'm showing you right now is some of the results that I was able to get using Gamebench. Now, Gamebench is a tool that I'm able to use to measure the frame rate, measure the performance of the gaming experience on the 4K 120 Hertz refresh rate display here that we have on the Xperia 1 Mark III. Since the display is either running at 120 or at 60, the UI elements and everything that uses typically like, you know, scrolling, using Instagram, Twitter, there's no problem. Everything will run at 120 frames per second. This is something that you're definitely going to be able to enjoy throughout the UI element. Last year's Xperia 1 Mark II gave us the ability of going somewhat of an upscaling to 90 frames per second, but it wasn't really a true 90 frames per second experience on the smartphone because it didn't translate into games. Games didn't give us the ability of running games at 90 frames per second. We were still capped at 60. Now we're able to go to 120. So the games that I ran on this device here, I gave a couple of opportunities to be able to see which ones were performing the best. So Asphalt 9 and Call of Duty Mobile were pre-installed on the smartphone. I didn't have to install them. I just made sure to update them to the latest version. The other games that I did install was Dead Trigger 2, Modern Combat Versus, obviously Pubg Mobile, and of course Real Racing 3. And the reason behind that is these are typically games that are known for running high refresh rate. So I wanted to see how they played on a smartphone that features such a high resolution as well as a high refresh rate. And we'll start off with, again, as you saw with Call of Duty Mobile, the benefits that we get here when you go into the settings to be able to customize the experience is that you're now able to see Ultra. That is the highest, basically, refresh rate that you're able to get. On top of the fact that, yes, it does drop the quality of the graphics, but at the display panel and the experience that you're getting there when you're moving so fast, this is very typical to what gamers typically get. They love playing at 1080p resolution at 144 or 240 Hertz, and of course, much better than playing at 4K at 60, because you want to be able to stay on top of the moving action, especially for first-person shooters. So definitely a very enjoyable game, and there's a lot of things to be said about basically Call of Duty Mobile, this partnership with Sony, and we've seen this even last year with the Xperia 1 Mark II. Very happy to see how the Call of Duty game is playing very nicely on mobile, especially with the headphone jack and obviously some of the best audio capabilities that we can get. The second game we jump into here is obviously PUBG. PUBG ran very nicely. Overall, a consistent 60 frames per second experience, not 40, and I was running it at the highest resolution. So all of the high settings that we get within PUBG work really nicely. And of course, you have the ability of having the spatial audio, the ability of actually focusing and knowing exactly where the enemy is, from what direction they're coming, even when you're using the stereo speakers. So I definitely enjoyed playing those type of first-person shooters. As you guys know, if you've watched the channel, those are typically these are typically some of the games I enjoy playing most of the time. Now, next one we're going to jump into is obviously Modern Combat Versus. That was one of the other games that ran at 120 Hertz. I love doing this because it definitely gives me the ability of enjoying playing games, but not only that, I'm also able to use it with the Kishi controller from Razer that definitely works great. I used it with the Xperia 1 Mark II, and I'm using it here with the Xperia 1 Mark III, and the experience just makes it even better because our hands are away from the display, and we also have the ability of enjoying playing video games at this high refresh rate, especially when it's first-person shooters. Again, very nice, very simple, and easy to set up. And I love the fact that it was already, compatible with the 120 Hertz refresh rate on the Xperia 1 Mark III. Now, the next couple of games that we played here was Real Racing 3 and, of course, Death Trigger 2. Now, Death Trigger 2 is a first-person shooter, and typically this game runs at much higher refresh rates, so I'm not sure why it wasn't running at this high resolution yet. So what I probably would say is more of an update, and the fact that I'm getting the chance to play with a phone that is actually not even released yet in the US. So please keep that in mind. There should be an update to Dead Trigger 2 that supports the high refresh rate, and we should be able to run at obviously full 120 Hertz with this one. I've seen it run with other devices. It should not be a problem. Now, the last game that I was able to get a high refresh rate running on it is the Real Racing 3 game, and this one actually ran pretty good. The overall experience is very nice, the graphics, the resolution, and it is actually a very fast-paced racing game. A lot of the elements in the display move very fast, so a high refresh rate definitely compensates for some of those, and you're able to at least see exactly, when things are coming, your turns, everything, all the information is there. Now, the last racing game that I did get a chance to play with was Asphalt 9. Now, this one, for some reason, I was capped at 60 frames per second. Again, it could be an update that could be coming down the road, but at this point, being that this is early hardware, this is the best that we're able to get, at least within Asphalt 9. By the time this device is released and available to the global market, I probably would say that this should be actually running at a much higher refresh rate, and more games will be supporting it because, again, this is something to keep in mind. 4K 120 Hertz is a unique experience on the Xperia 1 Mark III, but it's definitely going to be more adoptable, especially with games just starting to support it and provide it support as obviously they release more updates to it. So how is the gaming experience? Obviously, I showed you a lot of numbers. I'm showing you obviously a lot of different experiences, different type of games, a lot of first-person shooters and racing type of games. Now, of course, Genshin Impact, all these type of games will run perfectly fine. The one thing I will probably say as far as gaming and some of the functions that we have in here is obviously the new game enhancer functionalities that we have. You're able to customize the entire experience all the way from the touch response to the refresh rate to the voice controls, even to be, if you want to be able to do some voiceovers and recording some microphone options in there. We still have HS power control, which is definitely a very powerful tool to enable us to actually use the smartphone without charging it, meaning I can connect a power cable to it and get the experience of playing games for an extended amount of time without degrading the battery or generating excess heat. So that's one thing to mention as far as the functions that we have in there. Last thing is the screen recorder is actually updated now to support 120 frames per second at 720p only. 60 frames per second will be the maximum at 1080p. So if you want to be able to record your content and share it, 720p, 120 frames per second is definitely there. I found it always interesting whenever we're recording content on a device or trying to share content with you guys, is obviously our video is at 30 or 60 or even, at best is about 60 frames per second. So these games are running at a much higher refresh rate. But if you want to share it, let's say you do want to record it, now you have the ability of recording it at the full hertz or the full speed that you're able to get on it. So let's talk a little bit about temperatures and how do they actually perform when we have extended gaming sessions. As you can imagine, a lot of the content that I was able to show you guys in this video took me hours to record, which meant hours of video games and playing games on the smartphone. So temperatures definitely do rise. The Snapdragon 888 definitely runs warm. But I will say this, performance did not get degraded. So definitely there's a good balance between thermal management and of course performance as well as heat dissipation. So the temperatures definitely do rise up on the left side of the device. And what I mean by is closer to the camera sensor, essentially where the motherboard is sitting with the Snapdragon processor sitting there. Now, the maximum temperatures I was able to clock in was about 115 to 117 Fahrenheit. That's basically after about 30 to 45 minutes of video, playing games on the Xperia 1 Mark III. So If you have a case on it, if you're using the Kishu controller, there's absolutely not going to be any problems. For me, it wasn't so uncomfortable that I wasn't able to keep playing. I'm appreciating the fact that the heat dissipation is working, meaning that we are getting better thermals internally, but unfortunately it does get a little bit warm, so that's something to keep in mind. But I feel like a case or a controller will definitely fix that. It doesn't have this type of experience whenever you're using it on the daily. It's more so when you have extended usage, specifically gaming on this device. So what is my final verdict on the Xperia 1 Mark III? I think when it comes down to gaming, this is a shoo-in. There's no question that this is going to be one of the best gaming devices on the market. Last year, we had a great phone for content consumption and creation, of course. And if we had another phone, which is the Xperia 5 Mark II, that gave us the ability of having the 1080p 120 Hz refresh rate. Now we finally have a convergence between the two. We have 4K 120 frames per second experience on the Xperia 1 Mark III, and it definitely does not disappoint. Faster charging, still managing thermals. This is something that Sony is well known for. Decent battery, 4500 milliampere battery. I would have loved a little bit bigger battery, but for them to keep the same form factor as what we had with the Xperia 1 Mark II is definitely appreciated, and still giving us faster charging and of course all the new capabilities. So at this point, let's go ahead and talk about the Xperia 1 Mark III price and availability and perks, because there is some perks. Starting today, the launch of this video on July 1st, 2021, you're able to pre-order your device essentially in the US market. There's going to be two different colors. Basically, as I mentioned to you guys, the frosted black and the frosted purple. And those two colors are going to be available in different areas. The purple one is exclusively available on Sony's website. Both are going to be going for $1,299. Now, keeping in mind the pricing here is obviously showcasing some of the improvements that we have. And also make sure that when you are comparing this, when you do look at this phone and start looking at, well, is it better than insert device here? First question is, does that device have a 4K 120 Hz refresh rate? This is bleeding edge technology that Sony is providing us on a mobile device. So you have to appreciate all of the things that they've done there. And the pricing is still actually relatively comparable to some of the other options that we have on the market. Now, they are going to be running a promotion where you're still able to pick up a free pair of headphones if you order your device, I think through September 26th of this year. And of course, you're also able to get a mass amount, almost like 43,000 CP points directly in Call of Duty. So if you're a fan of Call of Duty, this is the phone to get. And seriously, some of the freebies that they're giving in here will definitely offset, I would say, the sticker shock, if there is any, with the pricing of the actual device. So make sure you get yours pre-ordered, and I'll give you guys, of course, more information in the description below.